Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
I moved into the Sycamore Grove neighborhood about 5 years ago, after searching for a place that felt like a real community. From the first day, I knew I'd made the right choice. It's a quiet, friendly place where everyone pretty much minds their own business, which suits me just fine. We're not nosy or intrusive, but there's a sense of camaraderie that's hard to find these days. One of the things I love most about Sycamore Grove is our summer block parties. Every year, usually in July or August, we close off one of the streets and everyone comes out to socialize. There's always plenty of food, games for the kids, and a chance to catch up with neighbors we might not see often. It's a simple tradition, but it really brings us together as a community. What really stands out about this neighborhood is how people help each other out when needed. It's not just empty talk. Folks here genuinely step up when someone's in a tough spot. Whether it's helping with yard work when someone's sick, or pitching in after a storm, there's always someone ready to lend a hand. Sycamore Grove isn't a fancy place by any means. We don't have grand houses or manicured lawns. It's just a regular middle-class neighborhood with modest homes and normal, everyday people. But that's what makes it special to me. It's not trying to be something it's not. It's genuine, down-to-earth, and comfortable. In the 5 years I've lived here, this place has truly become my home. It's where I feel I belong, where I've made friends, and where I can relax and be myself. It's not fancy, but it's home. And that's what matters most to me. Everything was going great until Karen Wilkinson moved in last spring. At first, she seemed nice enough, making an effort to introduce herself to everyone on the street. She brought homemade cookies to each house, wrapped in cellophane with a little ribbon, a gesture that initially endeared her to many. Karen talked enthusiastically about joining our community, asking questions about local events and expressing interest in getting involved. However, the friendly facade didn't last long. Within weeks, Karen's true colors began to show. Her cheerful demeanor gave way to a more critical attitude. She started making comments about the neighborhood's appearance, hinting at what she saw as shortcomings. Her once warm smiles became tight-lipped and judgmental. Neighbors began to feel uncomfortable around her, sensing that her initial friendliness had been a calculated move. It became clear that Karen had her own vision for Sycamore Grove, and it didn't align with the laid-back atmosphere we all appreciated. It started with little comments here and there. "Oh, I noticed your grass is getting a bit long," she'd say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Or, "Those toys in your yard are so colorful. I hope the kids remember to put them away at night." Then came the neighborhood meeting. Karen had gone door to door, inviting everyone to her house for what she called an important community discussion. Most of us showed up out of curiosity. "Welcome, neighbors," Karen beamed as we gathered in her living room. "I've called this meeting because I believe our lovely neighborhood could benefit from some structure. I propose we form a homeowners association." The room fell silent. Then Mr. Johnson, who'd lived here for 30 years, spoke up. "We've never needed an HOA before. What's the point?" Karen's smile tightened, revealing a hint of tension beneath her polite exterior. "Well, to maintain property values, of course," she exclaimed with forced enthusiasm. "To ensure our neighborhood stays beautiful and orderly." Her voice took on a more serious tone as she continued, emphasizing each word. "Regular home maintenance can increase a property's value significantly each year. We need to work together to keep Sycamore Grove attractive and well-maintained." Karen's eyes scanned the room, seeking agreement. After all, a poorly maintained neighboring property could decrease our home values by quite a bit. "We can't let that happen, can we?" Her smile returned, but it didn't quite reach her eyes as she awaited the neighbors' reactions. The room fell silent as people exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to respond to Karen's sudden shift in demeanor. Mrs. Rodriguez frowned. "But we already take care of our homes. We don't need rules for that." "I understand your concerns," Karen said, her voice syrupy sweet, "but think of the benefits. Unified landscaping, community events, a cohesive look for the whole neighborhood." People started murmuring, mostly in disagreement. I caught my neighbor Tom's eye, and he rolled his eyes. "Let's put it to a vote," Karen suggested. "All in favor of forming an HOA, raise your hands." Only Karen and 2 others raised their hands. "Well," Karen said, her smile now looking more like a grimace, "I see we need more time to consider this. We'll revisit the topic soon." But Karen didn't let it go. Over the next few weeks she kept bringing it up, cornering people as they got their mail or walked their dogs. Most of us just tried to avoid her. Then the notices started appearing in mailboxes. At first I thought it was a joke. The paper looked official, with Sycamore Grove Homeowners Association printed at the top. Mine cited me for excessive noise because my kids were playing in the front yard. I called my neighbor Lisa. "Did you get one of these crazy notices?" I asked. "Yeah," Lisa sighed. "Apparently, my flower pots are non-conforming vegetation." We laughed about it, but it was clear this was getting out of hand. The next day I saw Karen marching down the street, a stack of papers in her hand. She was putting them on car windshields parked on the street. "Karen," I called out, "what are you doing?" She turned, her face set in a determined expression. "Enforcing the rules. These cars need to be in driveways or garages." "But there is no HOA," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "We voted against it, remember?" Karen's eyes narrowed. "The HOA exists whether you acknowledge it or not. I'm the president, and I'm doing what's best for this neighborhood." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "You can't just decide there's an HOA when there isn't one. That's not how it works. We'll see about that," she snapped, continuing down the street. Things escalated quickly after that. Karen started calling tow trucks for cars parked on the street. She left more notices, citing people for everything from the color of their curtains to the time they put their trash cans out. The neighborhood was in an uproar. People were angry, confused, and worried. Some, especially the older residents, were genuinely scared about what Karen might do next. A group of us decided to confront Karen directly. We knocked on her door one evening, determined to put an end to this nonsense. Karen answered, her face lighting up with a fake smile. "Oh, hello, neighbors. What a pleasant surprise, Karen," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk about these notices and the towing." "You have to stop." Her smile vanished. "I'm simply enforcing the rules. If you don't like them, you can bring it up at the next HOA meeting." "There is no HOA," Tom exploded. "You can't just make up rules and expect us to follow them." Karen's face turned red. "I am trying to maintain standards here. This neighborhood was going to seed before I arrived. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you," Lisa scoffed. "For harassing us, for towing our cars. If you don't like it, you can move," Karen shouted. We all stood there, shocked at her outburst. Then Mr. Johnson spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "Karen, we've lived here happily for years without an HOA. We don't want one, and we certainly didn't agree to one. You need to stop this now, or we'll have to take further action." Karen slammed the door in our faces. The next day I woke up to the sound of a tow truck. I rushed outside to see Karen directing the driver to hook up Mrs. Rodriguez's car. "Stop," I yelled, running down the driveway. Other neighbors were coming out too, drawn by the commotion. "This vehicle is in violation of HOA rules," Karen declared loudly. Mrs. Rodriguez came out, still in her bathrobe. "What are you doing? I need my car for work." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "We need police assistance," I told the operator. "We have a neighbor illegally towing cars." Karen whirled on me. "How dare you? I have every right to enforce the rules." The police arrived quickly, probably because tensions had been building for weeks. Officer Davis, who I knew from community outreach events, stepped out of the cruiser. "What's going on here?" he asked, looking at the tow truck and the gathering crowd. Karen stepped forward, straightening her shirt. "Officer, I'm glad you're here. These people are interfering with HOA business. I'm having this car towed for violating our parking rules." Officer Davis looked confused. "I wasn't aware this neighborhood had an HOA." "We don't," I said quickly. "Karen here has been pretending we do and harassing everyone with fake violation notices." Karen's face turned an alarming shade of red. "It is not fake. I formed this HOA to protect our community." Officer Davis held up a hand. "Ma'am, you can't just declare an HOA exists. There's a legal process for forming one, and it requires agreement from the homeowners." "But I'm in charge," Karen insisted. "I make the rules." "No, you don't," Officer Davis said firmly. "And even if there was an HOA, you have no authority to tow vehicles from a public street. That's city property." Karen's eyes bulged. She looked around at all of us, then back at the officer. "You're all against me," she shrieked. "I'm just trying to make this neighborhood better." Before anyone could react, Karen lunged at Officer Davis, swinging her fists and kicking. He quickly restrained her, looking more surprised than hurt. "Karen Wilkinson, you're under arrest for assaulting a police officer," he said, cuffing her hands behind her back. As they led Karen to the police car, she kept shouting about ungrateful neighbors and how we'd all be sorry when our property values plummeted. In the aftermath of Karen's arrest, our neighborhood came together like never before. We had a real community meeting to discuss what had happened and how to prevent anything like it in the future. People shared stories of Karen's harassment, and we realized just how bad things had gotten. Several residents, including Mrs. Rodriguez, filed lawsuits against Karen for the illegal towing and harassment. The court cases dragged on for months, but in the end, Karen was ordered to pay damages and perform community service. As for Karen herself, she moved out of the neighborhood shortly after her arrest. Last I heard, She was trying to start an HOA in a new development on the other side of town. I almost feel sorry for her new neighbors. Almost. The whole ordeal taught us all a valuable lesson about the importance of community and standing up for each other. We started having more block parties and neighborhood events, getting to know each other better. We even formed a neighborhood watch group, a real one voted on by everyone, to keep an eye out for actual problems. In a weird way, Karen's misguided crusade brought us all closer together. We're more than just neighbors now. We're friends who look out for each other. And if anyone tries to mess with our community again, they'll find us ready to stand united. As for HOAs, well, let's just say the phrase is practically banned in Sycamore Grove now. We've found our own way to keep our neighborhood beautiful and friendly, without any need for rigid rules or power-hungry presidents. And you know what? Our property values are doing just fine.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.